Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of you for being here, and thanks for what you do for a living and for what you do to keep us safe. The situation at the border has become a crisis on many levels, certainly a humanitarian crisis, absolutely a crisis for the rule of law. This is sort of what happens when a legal regime itself contains loopholes within it that can be manipulated in such a way as to undermine the very interests, the very objectives sought to be achieved through that system of laws. And that's what has happened here. We've had a systemic breakdown at the border with many of its root causes within our legal system itself. And it's causing serious problems that that result in gut-wrenching consequences. Just from a human standpoint, it's tragic. One of the most gut-wrenching of these consequences involves the trafficking and smuggling of minors. Just a few weeks ago, we heard testimony from a hero, a gentleman named Tim Ballard, runs a group called Operation Underground Railroad, and he told us about some of the horrible conditions to which people are subjected. Children are subjected as they're trafficked across the border. And he explained to us, our own laws are perpetuating this sort of thing. They're fueling the wide-scale profiteering, the wide-scale profiting by drug cartels in human trafficking, in the human trafficking of children. Now, in some cases, traffickers send unaccompanied minor aliens across the border with the full expectation, the full understanding, in fact, the objective that the child will be apprehended. The traffickers know that under Flores, the child must be released quickly, in many cases, to a sponsor claiming to be a relative. And so as a result, the traffickers' accomplices on the American side of the border can come to the shelters, our shelters operated by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and attempt to claim the child. And so I'd like to start with you, Mr. Hayes. Is ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, is it thoroughly vetting all sponsors?
Absolutely, sir, without a doubt.
Now, with the sheer volume we are dealing with, and as I understand it, in the 6 months ending, I believe, in March of this year, you processed 32,284 children in just 6 months.
Yes,
Is that about right?
That sounds about right, yes, sir.
And when you're processing that many children, over 32,000 in that 6-month period, and holding them only for a short period of time, is it even possible to do the vetting necessary in order to protect children from traffickers?
Yes, sir, it is.
So you can know with confidence in every one of those circumstances that the person showing up is who that person claims to be, and that that person is not involved in the illicit trafficking of children?
Yes, sir. I have the utmost confidence in our staff and our grantees as they work through the sponsorship process to identify sponsors, work through the sponsorship reunification package, robust background checks, public records checks, sex offender registry background checks, and for anyone currently other than the moms and the dads, also we do FBI background checks. So I have full confidence in my team and our grantees and the work that they do, because every single employee and grantee of the Office of Refugee Resettlement wants to see the children released first, as safely as possible,
Sure.
Number two, as quickly as possible.
No, sure, and I don't doubt for an instant that that is your objective and that of those you work with. I would suggest here that it may not be entirely possible to protect everyone from the risk that they could be manipulating those standards. Now, to be clear, I want to make perfectly clear that I don't blame Border Patrol or ORR for the problems that we face or the risks that we confront. I think you're facing a perfect storm of sorts in terms of the humanitarian crisis we're dealing with. I primarily blame us, Congress, that is. We know that our immigration laws are ripe for abuse. We know, in fact, that they are being abused. We know that there are children in the thousands in the last year alone who have, in fact, been trafficked through the system, abusing this very same set of laws. And at a minimum, we know that changes to Flores are necessary and changes to the TVPRA. Chief Provost, Border Patrol officers will start conducting credible fear interviews later this year. Is that right?
We are working with our partners at USCIS on a pilot program. At this point, we are working through the training process on that.
And the hope and the expectation there is that that change may well help to weed out what might be frivolous claims or manipulative claims that are not warranted?
Yes, sir.
But the standard they'll be using, as I understand it, is the same one used by USCIS asylum officers. Is that right?
The training is from USCIS, and it has to meet their standards. We're working hand in hand as we attempt to move forward on a pilot program.
Right. Do we, in your opinion, need changes to the credible fear standard in order to reduce the discrepancy between findings of credible fear and actual grants of asylum?
That is certainly one of the things that we need to do. We need to bring the credible fear standards up to the same standards as asylum.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I can ask just one more question, what would those changes look like? When anybody can claim credible fear when they come in to the country, and that's just basically, do they have a fear of returning to their country? But the asylum laws are more stringent when it comes to what meets asylum, for instance. They may have a fear to go back to their country because of economic reasons and the situation they're in. That would be one example that is not going to meet asylum regulations. Thank you. I see my time's expired.
Thank you, Senator.